So,
Careful that you don't trip on the wire.
welcome to Fordham University, CASA Middle School. It is great to have you here. I know your principal, Mr. Bowman. I've worked with him and I visited the school several times. And one of the things that I love about the school is that it takes the Bronx's culture and claims it as something positive. Now, I teach a course at Fordham. It's my most popular course called From Rock and Roll to Hip Hop. So one of the things that is happening at colleges now is we are studying things that you might not be expecting to study in college. You can study the history of popular music. You can study the history of neighborhoods and communities and sociology. You can study the history of the civil rights movement. Another one of my most popular courses is called The 60s. And it's all about the civil rights movement in the 60s, which some of you may have covered. So my students will come here in a little while, and I'm going to have a couple of them to come up so you can ask questions. Siobhan, do you have your term paper?
I have to go print it.
You have to print it out. They're all supposed to hand in term papers today. So we're going to see if they actually hand in their papers. Do you have to write term papers in school?
No.
You write?
What is a term paper?
Okay. Gina, could you come up and explain what a term paper is? Because this is I teach history, and my students write a lot. This is Gina, by the way. So come up and tell her what a term paper is. She got an extension.
Yeah, I got an extension.
Because I'm really nice. Normally I don't give so many extensions. Okay. So Gina, tell them what a term paper is.
So it's just, the professor gives you a certain amount of time, a few weeks or sometimes the whole semester, to do research on a topic, and then write about that.
Mm-hmm. And do research, whatever kind of research is required to do it. So it might involve reading, it might involve interviewing people. Is there any particular person that you think you'd like to write about? Yes? Malcolm X. Okay, you can, in some courses, there's actually a course called Martin Luther King and Malcolm X in my department. So you could write a term paper about Malcolm X. Any other people you're interested in? Yes? Who? Martin Luther King. Tupac. Okay. Lots of people write papers about Tupac in my rock and roll to hip hop course. Anybody else? What about Cardi B? Yeah. You want to write a paper about her?
No.
No? You like any of you like her or no?
I like one song.
One song. Okay. Who do you like as an artist now? Who's popular? What?
Meet me up. Playboy Cardi.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Lil Wayne. Okay, hi. Do you have a term paper for me?
I do.
Okay, see? This is a term paper, and explain what you did for your term paper, because it isn't exactly always what you would think. It has pictures in it.
I did a walking trip a part of the Bronx because we read a book called The Bronx Primitive by Kate Simon. They used to live right around here. So I walked where she'd walked and where she'd been, and then I wrote how things have changed, what I saw and observed, and then I took some action.
Yeah. So this book, this is Kate Simon. It's Bronx Primitive. What it was like. You know where Tremont Avenue is?
Yeah.
So she grew up around Tremont Avenue near Crotona Park. She wrote about what it was like in the 1920s to grow up in that neighborhood when it was almost all immigrants, mostly from Eastern Europe or Italy. And a lot of the people didn't speak English among the parents, so it's like what that neighborhood was like then. And she describes the schools, the churches, the stores, the streets. And so, your name, pronunciation?
Oriana.
Oriana's from Norway. So she came to school all the way from Europe. So when you go to college, and you're from where?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Well, that's even, so that's still upstate, like, how far upstate?
What county?
Albany.
Albany's from
Oh,
near Albany and
Albany.
Norway. So not everybody, if you go to school here, maybe 5% of the students will be from the Bronx at most, and they'll come from all over the country and all over the world. So you learn about those experiences and you share experiences. And it's, you know, I grew up in Brooklyn and then went to a college where I stayed in a residence hall. And I had roommates from Texas, from California, and it was a new experience for me because I only knew Brooklyn. So, and it was a lot of fun. So here's a paper. So she went through the neighborhood and saw what buildings from the 1920s were still standing and which ones are gone, and also the feel for the neighborhood. So I'm really excited about reading this. Did you have fun writing it?
I did. I walked from here down to Tremont Avenue, and then I also went to Crotona Park. So a little bit like beyond, she probably was around there too, but
Yeah.
walked up Washington, and it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting that you're from Norway, but you have a very distinctive, well, pronunciation of
Oh, no
American.
accent.
Right.
Well, my mom is originally from Pennsylvania, actually.
Oh, okay, all right.
But I grew up in Norway. She moved there.
Yeah, come up. You're gonna.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I'm
figure
gonna
out, like, I
exploit
don't hear
you.
Norwegian dialect.
And then I'm adopted from South Korea.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is Christy, and Christy is from Cleveland,
Yes.
who just got knocked out by the Yankees.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Are you mourning?
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Okay. Now, she wrote another fascinating paper on, and explain what your paper is about.
Okay, so I wrote it on the High Bridge, which connects the Bronx to Washington Heights and Manhattan, and it's actually the first bridge ever built in New York City, so it's really cool. So I basically went through the history of it, and then I also walked it myself and like kind of did like a little walking tour, like looked at the views, the demographics of people there, kind of like how the bridge was renovated, because it was actually closed in the 70s and opened back up in 2015. So now like it's free to the public, anyone can go. It's really beautiful. You get like a really great view of the Manhattan skyline and the Harlem River, which runs north to south on it, and it's really cool. And I recommend anyone who just wants to like chill out to go to that bridge.
See, here's what I do. This is a course actually on the Bronx.
Are these students part of the same course?
Yes, they were all
Okay.
my students. It's called the Bronx Immigration, Race, and Culture.
That's the name of the course?
The name of the course. So, you know, what I want Fordham students to get out of the gates into the community and experience what the Bronx is like.
And that's an elective course, right?
It's an elective course. A lot of people want to get into it, but they only let 19 people in.
So can I ask each individual up there why they selected that course?
Absolutely.
Sure. My family's from the Bronx. We moved, or they moved like right before I was born. And like I wanted to learn more about where my family was from, and also it fulfilled some other core requirements, so it was really convenient. Also, I heard great things about Dr. Nason, so I wanted to take one of his classes.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
I also took it mostly to fulfill a core requirement, but like with selecting from which classes fulfill that. I'm in double major in urban studies and sociology, so I was trying to find a course that like relates to my major at the same time, and I'm glad I did because this works perfectly with what I'm studying. So it's really relevant to like the field of study I'm going to go into.
I really want to take this course because I looked it up and I thought it would be interesting to learn more about the Bronx community, like outside of these gates, which is kind of like the point of the course. Because I haven't like explored that much in the Bronx on my own, and I don't know that much about the history, so I thought that would be really interesting.
Yeah. how much, before you came here, how much did you know about Fordham University? Did you know anything, have you ever, how many of you had been on this campus before? And how, was it a tour, or is watching a game, or what?
It was like a swimming class.
A swimming class, okay?
I was watching a game.
Basketball?
My sister's graduation.
Oh, your sister's graduation, okay.
One of my students is taking an SAT prep course here.
Okay.
That's Tristan, right, Tristan?
You have a paper for me?
Yes.
Okay, come up and, yeah, we'll give. See, gotta take care of business,
Yes.
you know, always. Now here's the thing, in college, I give students a lot of freedom in what to write about, but they have to write. And so, you know, that's one of the things you need to be doing when you're, especially in high school, is doing a lot of writing. Do any of you keep a diary where you write about your experiences at home? A little book that you don't, okay, because the more you write, do any of you, are there any rappers here?
No.
No rappers? So, okay,
We got some comedians.
you got comedians. Yeah,
Sorry to think, what did you write about?
Oh, what did I write about? I wrote about the neighborhood where my family was from, and about like how it was to learn about that after, and like coming back to the Bronx after.
What neighborhood was
my
that?
family left.
what neighborhood?
It was Baychester.
Okay, Baychester is where the school is.
Yeah, near us.
Okay, what street did your family live on? Do you remember?
240 something.
Okay. That's
This
cool.
school is right up there. It's in the Baychester neighborhood. Now, was your family live in a private home?
It was like a 2-family home, but they're a big family, so they took both.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, this school is located in Baychester. And it's right near a housing development.
Some of these students are from.
Yeah,
Oh.
Secor House.
Secor houses. I know a DJ from there, Danny Beatman Martinez.
Oh, that's his father.
Who's for?
No, I'm joking.
No. Yeah, is a famous, hi, how you doing? Bring up your paper. See, the students who come to class are the ones who've written their papers. The ones who haven't written their papers are probably gonna try to hide from me. But I'm excited about reading
Is
these.
the semester over? Is your
Oh, no,
first
no,
over?
no. You have to write 3 different things for
Oh,
me.
3 term papers.
Okay,
Okay.
so the first term paper is a short one, either based on a walking tour that you're taking
Okay.
and describing the neighborhood, in some cases, a musical artist. So there was a singer named Laura Nero, who is from the 60s, so one of the students is writing a paper about her. Or it might be about a book.
Do they have to give you their topic before they?
Yeah,
turn the
yeah,
paper
they have to approve, I have to approve their topic.
Okay.
Now, they have a big term paper due at the end of the semester where they have to give an oral report on it. Do you
Hey.
have to give oral reports?
You don't have to give oral reports?
Could somebody give me an oral, stand up
sorry.
here?
I'm sorry. You don't, in our course description, you guys aren't to give an oral report? After each unit,
Oh, yeah.
we are to give an oral presentation.
Have you finished the unit yet?
We just started our first unit.
Okay, because can you bring somebody up to give an oral report based on what they've done so far?
Yeah, we've written our first, so we write essays as opposed to term papers.
Yeah, right.
And so after every unit, we have to write certain type of essay, expository, narrative.
Okay, because
Argumentative.
after I put them
Yeah,
there,
so-
some of you are gonna come up.
So somebody go up and explain what was the first essay that we just completed.
Okay, who's gonna do it?
Anybody, don't.
Yes, come up. Stand up. Come up stage, you know.
You raise your hand, so you gotta
You gotta deliver, yeah.
deliver.
Because, We don't want only the Fordham students to do the work. Okay, so explain what you wrote your essay
Well,
on.
what was it?
We did a narrative about like one of our, like I did one of my soccer games, so they might have did like one of the stuff that they did.
What was the theme of the narrative?
It was about
Somebody help them out.
It was about one thing that you will remember.
About your, so what is the thing you're gonna remember about your soccer game?
that we took like we won the tournament.
So elaborate exactly what it was, Maylin.
It was supposed to connect with you about a time that you had fun with a friend or a family member at an event.
Right. So that was the theme.
Uh-huh.
Write a personal story based on a time where you had fun, but it was with others.
That's a great assignment.
Right.
See, that
And so leading up to that final assignment, what did we do for the 3 weeks before we wrote our narrative? Tristan, since you're up there.
We did a final and a draft.
Right, but what did we do leading up to it? Who can help them out? Everything that we did up until that point.
Yeah.
We did like a graphic organizer to help us like break down what we're gonna write about.
Somebody else?
Mhm.
You know, speeches. So basically, we studied all the components that makes a very effective narrative, right? What's some of the components that makes a very effective narrative?
Yes.
Justin? Sensory details.
Okay, now I love the concept of sensory details.
Sensory
Could
detail.
somebody
Yeah,
explain
what
to
is
me
that? What is
sensory details?
Pretty much it's like details that use in both five senses.
Right,
Wow, so like smell,
Yes.
right,
taste,
yes,
Ew.
good writing.
Hearing, sight.
What's another component that we, go ahead, Anthony,
Point of view.
point of view. So what's the point of view?
Point of view is like where the first, second, third. So first is where the author is the second, third. And
So they have to pick a specific point of view. Are they
Wow.
part of the story, third person?
right, that's what you
first
wanted
person?
to deal with, whether to go first person or third
Yeah,
person.
I asked him about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's one more strategy that we went over?
Yeah.
Go ahead, since you're up there, Tristan.
We did similes.
And what do we call that? What do we call that, Matthias? Figurative
Wow.
language. So what's figurative language?
Yes.
Same thing.
Oh, it's like techniques that you use to make your story like sound more intense and better.
Wow,
Like it helps us like to get a reader like attractive and like
Damn.
be able to keep reading.
could you, do you have the book that I gave you with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me tell you a story, why this is such great teaching. Okay, that's a book called The Rat That Got Away. It was written by somebody who grew up in the Bronx, played professional basketball in Europe, and ended up becoming a banker and radio personality, even though he had gotten in trouble as a young man. Now, I became friends with him via email. And he read a book that I wrote, a memoir called White Boy, a Memoir. And then he said he wanted to write a memoir. And I said, here's the deal, send me a chapter. If you can, what you said, bring it to life so that people are interested in it, then we can do it. And everything you were taught, sense, smell, description of the area, point of view, it all was in there, and I saw that in the first chapter, and I said, keep writing. And he ended up writing a book, because he could make you almost like you were there. That's what you were saying, right? You want to make the reader be where you are.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why I am excited about this, is because this, you may actually end up enjoying writing when you do this, right? How many of you enjoyed writing your essay? Okay, that's more than half, that's good. A lot of people grow up hating writing. When I went to school, I didn't like to write because the assignments were very rigid. I couldn't express myself. I said, do this, you're going to do this on the Civil War. You're going to do this on this book. I never had a chance to write this way. And so I always thought writing was something I would be forced to do, not that I love to do. So if some of you are given the love of writing, it's going to make everything else easier. One of the things in the assignments I give my students, I want them to enjoy writing the paper, because then they'll write more, and also it'll be more fun for me to read. And they've got a lot more writing to do. They have a term paper that is 15 to 30 pages in length, on a subject that they choose, and then they have a take-home exam which will probably be 20 to 30 pages. So some,
A take-home exam that they have to write.
yeah, they have plenty of, they can make up their own questions. Think about that. The thing is, I don't want them writing what I want. I want them writing what they're interested in, but so they can express themselves and take in what we've learned.
Is this an upper?
This is an upper level
Class?
course. It's an, what called EP3. So they're all at least juniors or seniors.
Okay, good.
So some of them will write 60 to 80 pages.
Great.
Yeah, they're all excited about this. I tricked them.
Nice. That's light.
Wait, is 68 pages for like one assessment, like assignment?
For, it's for 3 different assignments.
Do you have any males in this class?
The males are the ones who didn't write their papers.
Are they the one that didn't
Can I have
write
your
their
term
papers?
paper?
The males, okay.
See, I'm telling you, the people who are showing up, well, the class starts at 1.
Oh, okay.
But in general, the women are more responsible.
And so it goes in life.
Yeah, but you're training a new generation of
Yeah,
young
so
men.
we're trying to defy that.
Okay, but I'm excited that this is, it's a wonderful way to learn writing.
Yes.
And you're very lucky that you're getting an opportunity to do this, because by the time you're in college, you'll have a positive impact on and view of writing, and then you wouldn't mind taking a course with me where you're going to have to write all these papers. So, but again, what I try to do is to get work out of students by making it interesting for them. And also by giving them new experiences. Is this a typical Fordham course?
Doesn't sound like a typical college course.
Like one of the things I want to do is break down the wall. This is a gated community. I want to break down the wall separating Fordham from the Bronx. So to do that, here comes a man. Come up, man.
You gotta be kidding me. Let's
We
get
actually
this
have a
man
man
around.
here. Oh, yeah. Okay, do you have your paper?
I don't know, I got a extension.
He's got. Oh, he has a legitimate extension.
Oh, okay.
He's not irresponsible, man.
You should have sort of looked at her face like.
Anyway, no, there were 2 people with legitimate extensions. This is, by the way, my student assistant, Sarah. So she may take a course with me eventually.
Next
Maybe
semester.
What?
Next semester.
You'll take rock and roll and
Yes.
hip hop.
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay,
forward to it.
so, but in terms of expression, let me tell you a story about hip hop before I start rapping to you. Believe it or not, I'm going to do that. God help me. One of the things we do here, we have a partnership with teachers and social workers in Berlin, Germany, called the Bronx Berlin Youth Exchange. So we have a whole group of like 20 young people from Berlin, some of them are DJs, rappers, beatboxers, dancers, who are coming to New York, and they're going to actually come here and interact with my class. But the program started when I met a social worker in Berlin who worked with kids in Berlin who had been in trouble with the law, who didn't have jobs, dropped out of school, were sort of in the street, and also they came from a lot of different backgrounds. Some of them had been, people who were German citizens for decades, and some were recent immigrants. So these young people, mostly guys, they wouldn't talk to a social worker like one-to-one because they were too proud. They wouldn't even talk in group therapy. But if you gave them rap lyrics, they would express what their life was like. So it became a vehicle to get especially young men who wouldn't really open up about their problems or, to express themselves. So that's part of the, and they all knew about the Bronx because the Bronx is where hip hop started.
Yep.
Hip hop, for many people, is a vehicle to express themselves. Now, you're lucky enough to have teachers who are going to let you express yourself in writing. That to me is really exciting. I hope my students had this in high school, but I didn't. It's interesting. So none of you are rappers, I take it. We don't have anybody who has a lyrics notebook that they keep. Yeah, because that's.
Well, this generation, and I'm gonna be critical on today's rapper. It's not very lyrical, so.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's more.
Do you have your paper?
Melodic and.
yeah.
Okay, we have a man who actually turned in the paper.
This looks like a student athlete.
He's also a student athlete.
All right,
Yes.
see, student athlete does their work.
Okay. This is a swimmer.
Yep.
Did anybody else here on the team?
I used to be on the swim team.
You used to be. You quit the swim team. Okay. Anybody else played sports in high school? When you were in high school, what sport? Swimming?
Yeah, diving.
Diving. Anybody else?
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics. Wow. Anybody else?
Gentleman behind
I
me.
rode crew.
Okay. There you go. And in high school?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah,
Like
we have a.
Crew's like-
It's a
Yeah.
being a student athlete. It's like having a full-time job, right?
Right.
If you're
So
especially in the
explain
swimming team.
Yeah.
What time do you have to get up?
Like 3 days a week, like 5:30.
And you're in the pool early, or?
Usually the weight room.
The
And
weight
The pool right after that.
Okay, so you go to the weight room and lift, and then how many days a week are you in the pool?
6.
6 days a week in the pool, approximately how many hours? You have your paper?
No, I'm heading in Monday.
Oh, okay, that's right, okay. Another extension. At least there isn't a man with an extension. Okay, so that you're in the pool 6 days a week. How many hours a day do you practice? Counting weight lifting?
I'd say 3 to 4.
3 to 4 hours.
20 hours a week.
20 hours a week, and then you're traveling for meets.
Yep.
Okay, so to keep up with your schoolwork, you have to be really disciplined.
Yeah.
Both of my children were student athletes. My daughter played tennis in college, and my son played baseball. And it was the same thing, 3 or 4 hours a day, plus the travel. Now, when I was in school in the 60s, we didn't lift back in those days. You just practiced. It was it was much less intense than it is now. Now it's like a full-time job.
Yeah, I just explained that to them.
What?
I just explained that to
And
them.
if you want to play sports in college, you've got to really be organized to get your work done.
Yeah.
Do they have study halls for your team, or is everything is individual?
Our team doesn't require a study hall, but we have resources available if you need it.
Mhm. You have your paper?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's the
See,
greeting.
I'm not too subtle. Bring it up.
That's the greeting.
That's the greeting, right. I'm gonna, now the thing, in return, I read these papers, I'll get it back within a week, and I'll read every word and, correct things, so it's, but I like, teaching a course where the students write something they're interested in. But let me tell you before I rap for you how I got interested in hip hop. Because it's not the music that's natural to me. I grew up, I'm 71 years old. I'm nearly dead, as I tell people. And I grew up in the 1950s with music that we used to call doo-wop. Now, yeah,
My mom, she was watching like TV and those songs.
yeah, they're great songs, and the Bronx produced as much of that music as anywhere. A group, the Chords, the Chantels, Dion and the Belmonts, the Chiffons. A lot of the music, I grew up in Brooklyn. A lot of the music that I grew up, listening to, dancing to, and singing came out of the Bronx, Harlem, and Brooklyn. And so we all used to sing in the street corners or in the hallways of school. And that was the music I grew up with. And in New York, you know, it was all these, you know, the harmonic groups. Not as much Elvis Presley, let's say, would be popular other parts of the country. So I wasn't exposed to hip hop, you know, when it started in the 70s, even though it started very close to Fordham. There was a place called the Webster PAL at 183rd Street in Webster. You have your paper?
I do.
Okay, another guy, and he's a basketball player. See, the guys are not total, and you have your paper. Guys with pen papers. See? An inspiration. There we go. The thing was, we, at Fordham, we didn't know that there was this music that was going to change the world being made right outside the door here. The Webster PAL at 183rd and Webster was one of the major indoor venues for all the great hip-hop artists of the 70s. Now, do they know any of the names of the DJs from the early 70s?
Well, you know Jamal Bowman, we try to incorporate the old school hip hop, the founding fathers.
Right.
They actually met, I don't know if it's, yeah, these are 8th graders, so maybe they're 6th and 7th grade year. They met DJ Kool Herc.
Oh, they met DJ Kool Herc. Wow.
He came to what we have on Fridays, we call Community Circle. So it's sort of like our assembly. And so DJ Kool Herc spoke about a couple years ago at our community circle. So I don't know if they remember or they really don't know the impact of that.
Okay, well let me tell you a little why I travel, you know, on a regular basis to Europe. And all over Europe, hip hop is the most popular music among young people, especially in urban areas. Everybody knows it started in the Bronx, in whether it's in Spain or Italy or Germany or England or France. They all know it started here. And Kool Herc was the one who started a revolution. So let me explain to you exactly what he did. In the late 60s, early 70s, DJ music was very popular in New York City. Or, you know, and you had these club DJs, what they would do, they would take a whole record and then at the end of the record, merge it with a mixer into a whole other record and maybe say something like to the beat, this is, you know, Dynamite Pete from across the street with the funky beat. That's actually a real person. Pete DJ Jones was one of the first great club DJs. But it was whole records going into each other. Now, these clubs, the DJs down there, you had to have paid admissions charge, a cover charge, and you had to pass a certain dress code. So kids from the Bronx who didn't have money couldn't get in. So they knew about these DJs. So Herc, who came from Jamaica, threw a party with his sister at his apartment complex, 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. Have any of you ever been there? Sedgwick, 1520 Sedgwick. It's a building. You know where Sedgwick is?
Anybody heard of Sedgwick?
It's Sedgwick Avenue, all the way near the river. S-E-D-G-W-I-C-K. Okay, so this is a building, there was a community center, they threw a party. Now, what Herc did, because he came from Jamaica, he had these huge loud speakers and 2 turntables, but he started out playing Jamaican music and nobody came. Then he started playing Latin music and like James Brown, and people came to his parties. But he noticed something. When a section of a record came on that was pure percussion, people went crazy in the dance floor. So he said, let me try something. Let me take 15 seconds of pure percussion in one record and mix it into 15 seconds in another and keep going back and forth until you had 10 minutes of pure percussion. People went nuts on the dance floor. And then the next time he threw a party, like 3 times as many people came in. And this you were making a little money with this. You charge, 50 cents or $1. So it was packed. So then he said, let me take it to a park. There's a park called Cedar Park, which, you know where the Bronx Community College campus is? It's all the way, it's upset. There's a park down by the highway there. So he decided to take his whole sound system to a park and throw a party. Where do you get the electricity from? A lamppost. You can unscrew the bottom of the lamppost and plug it in.
Yep.
So he threw this party and like 1,000 people came. And the police didn't break it up because it was a time in Bronx history when there was a lot of fires and a lot of violence. And so if nobody was getting shot, the police let you have a party. And this started to spread. A guy who called himself Africa Bambaataa.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard of him? Started doing it in the community center of the Bronx River houses. Oh, my gift? Yeah, I don't let them get away with that. This is my ransom. And then somebody else who called himself Grandmaster Flash started doing it. Any of you know where Fox Street is? It's,
South Bronx.
South Bronx. And he started doing it in abandoned buildings and then into schoolyards. So you had these are the three most famous founding DJs. DJ Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa, and Grandmaster Flash. Did I mention rapping yet?
Not yet.
It was all the beat. It was the beat and music which didn't have much words. But what happened is the DJs started being competitive with each other. So, Herc hired this guy named Coke LaRock to rhyme a little over his songs. And then Bambaataa started doing the same thing, but Grandmaster Flash went crazy and got 5 guys to rhyme over.
Before rhyming, so the DJs were the show.
The DJs were the show.
So in order to battle with a DJ, they hired an individual called an MC, which is called Masters of Ceremony, right? And this MC would tell you how good the DJ is, just over the beat, right? And it'll be sort of melodic, but it wasn't called rhyming yet. So they'll say like Grandmaster DJ Mark Nason is cutting the beat, and can you feel your feet? Let me hear you say ho. So
the ladies in the house said,
basically started livening up the crowd. Raise your hand if you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
and that kind of thing. And there was a whole tradition, by the way, of that in Jamaican music.
Yeah.
But there was also a tradition in New York African-American communities, especially, of poetic rhyming and insult, both saying how great you were in rhyme and insulting one another's mothers. Was it still going on when you were?
Still doing, yeah.
Still doing
well,
it, okay.
When hip hop, so I'm like a child of hip hop. So when hip hop, so you're talking about the 70s.
Yeah.
And so that's around the time I was actually born. So as a preteen, I was able to see it actually manifest in Brooklyn, right? So at 11, 12, I was able to go to a block party in the park and see the DJs with the 2 turntables and see the MC. And so I was telling one of my former students who now is in high school, I remember the first rap song that was ever put on wax. So before
King Tim the Third?
Right, King
the Fatback Band. Could we put this on?
You have the Fatback Band?
No, can we get
YouTube. Right.
Could we do it on YouTube? Put the Fatback Band, King Tim the Third.
Before MP3 players, which is probably foreign to you guys, I look at MP3 players, and before downloading music, and before there were actual discs that they call records.
Yeah, right.
They were actually record players.
Oh, great. Okay.
With needles that played the record.
King Tim the Third, Fatback Band. Yeah, King Tim the Third by the. This is the first recorded
one. That was the first song on record. That was the first rap song on record. Okay. That's funny. I just played this for one of my high school students the other day. That was the first rap song on record. I actually brought that 45 record. 75 cents. That was the first rap record.
No, a little more. They're moving.
Look, so they're younger than you guys, so they're probably like, what the?
You never knew this. Okay. Okay, now put on Rappers Delight. Okay, which is the big one, but this is a hell of a story behind this.
Right.
Because it was done, okay, there was a very famous, locally famous Bronx group called the Cold Crush Brothers.
They see what doesn't.
And one of their lyricists was a guy named, they called Casanova Fly or Grandmaster, hold it for a second, at Grandmaster Kaz.
Right.
And he was performing at a club in the Bronx, and there was a bodyguard named Hank, like, you know, a bouncer.
Yep.
And he asked Kaz for his rhyme book. And at that point, nobody thought there was much, you know, do with it. So then 6 months later, Kaz is listening to the radio, and his lyrics are on the radio with a song that's produced in New Jersey by Sylvia Robinson, and this is it. And this is what takes hip-hop commercially with the rapping.
This was the first song where they actually had visuals, and where it left, it was no longer territorial.
Yeah,
It
louder.
became multi-region.
You know this song?
Yeah, they don't know this song.
They don't know it.
I brought this one too.
It's clean.
This one it went up to about $1.75.
$1.75.
So this was like the first commercial.
It was produced,
I remember this.
produced in New Jersey by a woman named Sylvia Robinson who used to own a club in the Bronx.
Yeah. Like I know that whole song word for word.
Can you what?
Most old school like they have like a key run just instead of two rounds when they stop this, so they keep talking.
Yeah, no, okay. Now, after this is a song which I'm going to rap along with called The Message. Put on The Message by Grandmaster Flash, which is the first song that talks about the social conditions.
Right.
This is a party song, and this is a song which talks about how people were living in very hard circumstances.
Do you want this with the lyrics on?
Sure.
Melly Mel is the artist. He's gonna help you perform.
Okay.
Figure I'll wake you up a little bit.
You can record me when I rap. You have a paper for me? Okay.
He's about to perform.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Hey.
Broken glass everywhere, people pissing on the stairs, you know I just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise, got no money to move out, you know I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with a baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man in a tow repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now this is going to be the story of how I became to be called Notorious PhD. So what happened was, we were doing all these community history projects, oral history for the Bronx African American History Project, finding out that even before hip-hop, the Bronx produced more varieties of popular music than any place in the country in the world. It was Latin music, mambo, and Afro-Cuban music. It was African American music from doo-wop to gospel to jazz, and then also West Indian music like calypso, and all these forms fused together. So I was brought into the schools to talk to students like you about it. First I trained the teachers. You know, that was one thing, talking to the principals and the teachers. Then to the students, so they said, who's the old white guy? So when I started rapping along with the message, they thought it was pretty funny. Then I wrote an original lyric. So I need a beatboxer. Any of you do it, or do I have to? Who's up?
You gonna do the
Come on,
beatbox?
come up and stand with me.
You got to perform now.
Okay.
Wait, I have to see them.
No, you just do the beatbox.
Papers all, come on, everybody, put your papers in the pile.
Don't forget
Okay.
the papers.
Don't forget those papers. I'm so excited about reading them. Okay, okay. So now, what I'll do is start slow and you create the rhythm. Okay. Okay, so I'll start slow. So they call me
Gotta listen, please.
okay, they call me notorious. Can you go with that?
I got you.
Okay, okay.
I'm not gonna get up there.
I had it.
You had it?
You got it? Okay, let's do it. Okay.
You looking puzzled.
Because I got another one. Okay. They call me notorious PhD. I don't wear bling. I spit history. I come to the BX from the BK. MCs know that I don't play. You may be shocked to see my face. The jams I bring. I'm sorry. I'll start over again. I'm getting old. Okay. Okay, we'll do it. Okay. They call me notorious PhD. I don't wear bling. I spit history. I come to the BX from the BK. MCs know that I don't play. You may be shocked to see my face. The jams I bring don't match my race.
Hey.
Okay, that's enough.
Round
Anyway,
of applause,
okay.
man. So,
one of the questions that we ask is, are all of you from the Bronx?
Yes.
Okay, so what parts of the Bronx? Are you all from the Baychester area? Do you come from?
Yeah, pretty much the same.
So they're all from the same area, yeah. What? Mount Vernon, okay. So this is a very desirable school to get into because it has the culture of the community, but it also has great teachers who stay in their jobs, and it ends up producing good enough test scores so the Department of Education doesn't bother them and lets
we actually
them.
became a probe school where we pretty much kind of lay our own ground rules in regards to curriculum and testing and those things that are usually monitored by the Department of Education. So we have good enough results where they pretty much go, okay, we're going to leave you guys alone because we know what you guys are going to give us. And so we're able to come up with our own curriculum. And so hip-hop is embedded in that.
Hip-hop is part of the curriculum. And that's such an amazing thing to have done because, as I was telling them earlier in class, there was a time when 168 schools were closed in New York City, and you couldn't teach in a creative way because everybody was fearful. And this school has carved out space. Are there sports in your school?
Yes.
One.
What sport?
Basketball.
Okay. Is there physical education?
Yes.
Is there music?
Yes.
So all these things that the schools used to have when I was going there are still here. But it's relatively unusual. Now that I have all my great students here and they've all handed in their papers, this is a chance for you to ask them questions about what college is like. So,
So, like, we all first started college, was that scared?
I was
What was the
scared.
question?
We
Hey,
all
come
first
on.
started college, was that scared?
were you scared?
Oh, yeah.
I was
Nervous.
annoyed.
Yeah.
You were annoyed.
More than
Okay.
anything. Like, you had to do a lot of preparations for it, like the SATs, multiple essays, supplementals for colleges, readiness. Then if you're taking like advanced AP class, you have to do that on top of it all. And then you have family, man, it was a lot. But I mean, like, honestly, it's kind of worth it after freshman year. At the beginning, you're not really like used to the place, but then you get really used to it and you like it.
Yeah.
Well, I like to give the narrative that college is supposed to be the best years of your life. So even for you college students up there, like, that should be the takeaway from college. Like, you should, 25 years from now, you should be able to say to someone else, like, college, those were the years. So that's what I kind of preach to them.
Is that
I'm hoping
fair
you guys are
assessment
experiencing
of?
that.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes.
How is the work?
How's the work like in college?
It's a lot of
Very
work,
hard,
but
yeah.
like I think it's manageable, and you have a lot of people around you that will help you if you're willing to be helped. I guess usually teachers have office hours that you can go in and talk to them, get to know them, which is really helpful.
Yeah, and that's, by the way, not true at every school.
Right.
That's one of the great things about Fordham, is this is a place where you can talk to your professors. Even people who are like full professors, who have written books and travel, you work here because you want to really teach. It's a little different. Both of my kids went to Ivy League schools where they got, they didn't really get to know that many professors. There are other benefits there, but so this is one of Fordham's great strengths, getting to know your professors.
How did you guys make the decision to come to this school?
That's a great question.
Well, like he said earlier, I'm from another state, so I really wanted to come to New York City. It's been like a dream of mine since I was little. And my major, because I originally came purely as urban studies, and that's not offered at a lot of schools. Fordham had the right major, it's in a great location, and it gave me financial aid, which is very important when we're choosing schools, because college is very expensive.
Yeah, any other?
I went to the school that gave me the most money. My family doesn't come from a lot of money. I'm paying for school myself.
Preach.
So I picked based on financial aid, scholarships,
Uh-huh.
all that stuff.
Any other? Did you get recruited by Fordham?
Yeah. I think being able to swim and do that at the school is definitely a big part of it for me. He's not paying for school. But yeah, I definitely think if you're into athletics, if you really love it, and you have the opportunity to compete in college, I think it's definitely a very rewarding experience.
Mm-hmm. How are the dormitories? I have no idea. So anybody wanna-
They get better after freshman year.
Yeah.
Some of them are better than others.
Yeah.
Some of them are better than others.
It's better than your bedroom. I mean, well, depending, because some of you guys, bedrooms are like hooked up. Maybe me strike that. That's fine.
They, like, y'all choose Fordham.
So you just missed that answer. But that's okay.
I love
That was 2 questions prior to your questions. But that's all right. That's all right. You got time to think of another one, buddy. Don't worry.
Any others?
How many of you guys are planning on going to college, but without even thinking about it, or that's like an automatic part of your agenda once graduating from high school? That you're definitely going to college.
Okay, so that's 100%. Well, that's good, because if you don't go to college, this is a very hard economy to do well in. It's, so it's important that you get a strong foundation now.
Any educational majors? Education?
Anybody going to become a teacher here?
No? No education?
No teachers?
We need teachers.
We need teachers. Any?
Actually have
What?
undergraduate education.
No? Journalism major?
Anybody want to be a journalist?
No.
Okay, so what do we? I don't know what my students want to do.
That's interesting.
Yeah. You know what you want to do?
Yeah, I want to be in finance.
In finance. Okay, so he wants to get rich. Anybody else have any medicine? Yes. We got this is medicine. That's amazing. That's and see, that's one field that is recession proof. I had now let me talk about. So I had students who went into a number of fields, and a number of them switched careers and went into nursing because that was a field which a growth field, a high wage field, but it also became very hard to get into. So I had students who had to have like a 3.7 average to get into a top nursing school. So health fields is that's a big area. Anybody else? Urban planning, anybody? Okay.
I'm going into the Navy after this.
Okay. Do you plan a naval career, or do you think you're gonna?
Possibly.
Yeah, I have a couple of students who have actually had naval careers, and somebody who's now a ship commander. He graduated about 14 years ago. So it's that's also a secure occupation.
Yeah, it's a little different from going into the Navy straight out of high school as opposed to going in with a college degree.
Yeah, there's a naval ROTC program which actually helps pay for your education.
Yeah, it's a full scholarship.
It's a full scholarship,
Yeah.
so that's another thing. And you know, so I've had several students who have been in naval ROTC. One of them actually left the Navy, got a doctorate at Cambridge and a law degree from Harvard after he left the Navy. So that's your plan?
Yeah. Great. Maybe throw it in MD.
Yeah, right. So, any, yes?
What if that plan A you have now don't work? Do you have a plan B?
That's a great question. What's the plan? What are your plan Bs?
That's a term paper request. Paper number 2. What's your
Adding
plan
on to
B?
that question though, I feel like it's a lot of people who graduate in a certain major don't actually end up going into that field when they graduate. They normally end up doing something else. I'm actually a computer science major, so I really doubt I would not find a job for my major. But honestly, it's actually really versatile into the things that you can do because when you go to school, you're not only learning one skill, you're actually learning multiple ones, so you can apply them to different fields. And going back to the education question, I'm not really pursuing an education major, but I do want to work as a part-time teaching in local communities computer science.
Well,
and coding.
interesting enough, finance, they have a program called Teach for America, who actually recruits like finance majors and graduates who went into the finance field for like 3 or 4 years and decided like, the pressure's too much, and so we have a vast amount of percentage, a high amount of percentage who teachers were financial advisors. So that might be something, you know, that might be a plan B.
I think in this economy you have to have multiple plans because everything is changing so fast. I mean, this is hilarious. I was remembering, this was about 12 years ago. Somebody said to me, Nason, I belong to a tennis club in Long Island. That was the sport I played in college. He said, you ought to check out this thing called Twitter. And I said, Twitter? What are you talking about? He said, it's this hottest new way of people communicating. They're using it in the Middle East and Egypt for revolts. And I said, leave me alone. You know, it was also what I said the first time that people talked about email. I said, leave me alone. So who knew that Twitter would get a president elected and also become part of our lives? But the point is, you never know what is going to emerge, and who had heard of Amazon 15 years ago? You know, and now, you know, it's you know, one of the fastest growing it's eating up other companies. So you live in a rapidly changing world, so, you know, you want to keep flexible. But here's the thing, the skills you're learning how to write, learning how to speak, learning social skills, all those things give you the flexibility to succeed outside of what may be your comfort zone. So all the things you're being taught at this school are going to help you have flexibility. And let me give you an example, my own daughter. Okay, she ended up, partly because of tennis, going to Yale. She always wanted to be a teacher and a social worker, or a public interest lawyer, because that was the kind of, my wife is a principal, you know, we're that kind of family, you know, not a business oriented. She was a very, very good student at Yale, but in American Studies. Took one economics course, no business courses. But she was the captain of the Yale tennis team and had like a very high average. Her friend said, have you ever thought of investment banking or management consulting? She said, what's that? She said, apply, they'll love you. So she applied for, this is 1999, applied for 12 jobs, got 12 offers. And they said, what should I do? You see that one, Goldman Sachs? Yeah, that one. So she's still there and makes at least 10 times what I make as a full professor. Because they trained her. But what did they see in, you know, she was competitive because she was an athlete and she, you know, always did well in whatever you gave her. So if you're the kind of person, whenever you have a challenge, that you try to do well in it, whether it's sports or academics or music, that translates into adaptability to whatever the world is going to throw at you. And so, you know, the other thing is social skills. Now, that book that this is, you know, which, The Rat That Got Away, which my students are reading. So, Alan Jones, right, or hopefully reading, especially after they read their papers. It's, okay, Alan Jones, he grows up in the Patterson houses. His father is kind of a rough guy, but his mother came from a proper West Indian family who taught him table manners and social graces. So he was somebody who always knew how to be polite and always was with all the adults and hello, Mrs. Jones, how are you? May I hold the door for you? You know. He was also a great basketball player and he was a tough kid. So he got in trouble, but when people decided that they were going to help him, they knew they could get him out of trouble and send him to a prep school in New England where nobody else was from the Bronx. And because he had those social graces, he could adapt to that situation. And the same thing happened when he gets older and he gets to play basketball in Europe. He was a professional basketball player. So a couple of times the owners of the team were very wealthy Europeans, and they'd invite the players to the house for a sit-down dinner with wine and some of the players who didn't have those skills were like tongue-tied. But he was, you know, hello, you know, and he found as a result of this that he could make friends in other countries, and he ended up becoming, and after his basketball career, going into banking and becoming extremely successful, and also becoming a radio personality and DJ. So he used his Bronx street cred, but he also, now, do they talk about your school about code switching? Is that a...
Technology?
Oh, no, okay, so let me introduce a concept which I often talk about. That you have different sort of languages for different communities you interact with. You don't talk the same way with your friends in the street as you do when you're going in for a job interview.
Right.
you have to be able to do both. And that means sometimes you have to change gears and it's like if you come from another country, you have to learn, you learn English, but you still know your original language. It's like having more than one language of communication, and that is a skill that I think if you have to learn. So I grew up in Brooklyn in a neighborhood called Crown Heights. It was a tough neighborhood then.
It's tough now.
Yeah. So
Change.
I had to get, you had to get your acceptance in the street, and some of that means you had to talk the way Now I don't know if this is as true for young women as young men. It probably is now. You have to be able to talk the language of the other kids in your neighborhood, or else you're going to be teased and isolated. But at the same time, you can't talk that way, in other settings, or then you're going to be typecast. So what I learned by the time I was in high school, I learned how to speak for a job interview, or a college interview. How many of you were interviewed before? Does Fordham require interviews?
No.
They don't allow them.
They don't interview?
They like to say that you can't even if you want.
Even if you want
I think if
to?
you're applying for a special program, you might have to be interviewed though.
That's interesting, because when both of my kids for the Ivies, they required interviews, and it was a very serious part of what
Oh
they
yeah,
do.
they do that.
So anyway, okay, so I had to go, I wanted to go to an Ivy League school, so I had to learn how to do an interview. I had to learn how to shake hands, look somebody in the eye, say yes sir, no sir. And those things ultimately, made a difference. And then so part of this is learning everything that is kind of around you. I know I'm boring, but,
It's age group, you gotta entertain.
this is middle school.
You gotta entertain as well as inform with these guys.
Okay.
Their attention span is.
So, any more questions for my
It's killing my
students?
leg right
Okay, ask them some questions. So, for you guys. You have questions for the, yeah?
What do you guys want to do when you grow up? Like, what do you want to be?
now. Better say the 3 things we talked about yesterday.
Basketball?
Basketball, that wasn't
Fireman?
A fireman? That's realistic.
Three
A basketball
professions.
player and
I said I had to do it all over.
a doctor.
So-
Okay.
I want to be a technologist.
Mhm.
Technology.
A basketball player and a construction worker.
Um,
No
did
lawyers?
anybody here want to be a basketball coach? Because, okay, so that's a pretty realistic, okay, I wouldn't tell anybody to say that they can't make the NBA, because, even though the odds are not great, people should always pursue their dreams. But most people, who end up wanting to be involved in sports end up coaching more than playing. Especially since the average career of a professional athlete is maybe 3 or 4 years. So, remember somebody said Plan B? Coach.
My plan B, if I don't make it to NBA, I'm trying to be
An owner?
Yeah.
You want to own an NBA team? Okay.
Shoot for the stars. Shoot for the stars.
Okay.
Spicy.
Yes.
If I don't become a professional soccer player, I want to become an RN.
Oh, that's a great career. RN, registered nurse. Okay, now, do you play for your school or for a team in your community?
I used to play for my uncle's team, but I got like it's like an age thing, so I play for like a different team.
Is this in the Bronx?
It's like a Westchester.
In Westchester?
Let's ask the professional basketball player, is he playing basketball now? Does he play for a team?
Mm-hmm.
For my day, I want to be a basketball player, professional one, and if that doesn't work out, I'm trying to coach a middle school team, like a school team, then maybe my own team, NBA or something like that.
Yeah.
Plan A, I want to be an entrepreneur, and if that don't work, I want to be in the military.
Oh, my plan A is to be a professional basketball player. If that doesn't work out, I would.
So this school is an NBA recruiting factory?
We have a pretty successful basketball program in middle school over the last 5 years. So these kids actually, when we started our program, they were in elementary school, which we share the same building.
Right. Wow.
So I guess a lot of them saw the success of our program coming up, and so we've had some students to go on and play high school, and actually 1 or 2 now actually play Division I.
That's great.
So
no, that's it's.
We're not preaching NBA.
No, but if here's the thing,
I'm preaching college. If it gets to college,
because if you're able to get young people into college,
well, the reason why, because I was a student athlete and I was able to get to college free. 4 years on a basketball scholarship.
So where did you?
I went to Long Island University.
Oh, you went to LIU? Wow.
And I was able to play overseas, but that's not everyone's destiny. You know? But the goal is to get to college. So if you can get to college, like the gentleman here, free education, it goes a long way.
It also can get you into a better college than you otherwise.
And it also gives you an option to study the 3 majors we discussed yesterday. If I had to do it all over again, law, something in the medical field, or engineering or computer science. Like, if I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, and we had this discussion, and I was given a free education, those will be the 3 or 4 majors, because you know, those majors and those professions stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But let me tell you why I think it's exciting that your school has a serious basketball program. When I was
I happen to be the basketball coach.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And I started the program, so I wanted to.
So let me give you a little history, because one of the reasons that I wanted to go to an Ivy League school is my cousin Stephen, who was 7 years older, went to the same public schools I did and played at Columbia. And I said, damn, I used to go watch his games. I said, I want to do that. They were, because at that time in the 50s, in Brooklyn and the Bronx, the schools had incredible basketball programs in the schools and in the schoolyards. So I'm going to give a name of somebody to you named Hilton White. Hilton White ran a community basketball program at 163rd Street and Caldwell Avenue. He ran a team called the Falcons. He sent 100 kids to college in basketball scholarships over 25 years out of that park, 3 of whom started on the 1966 Texas Western team that won the NCAA championship. Beat Kentucky, and there's a great movie about it called Glory Road.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw the movie? 3 of those starters were from Hilton White's schoolyard at 163rd and Caldwell Avenue. And when I was in high school, you know, I went to Erasmus Hall High School. Very famous player came out of there named Billy Cunningham, but several other NBA players. But on all of our teams, we knew that the best players were going to get recruited and go to college. And this was, nobody came from a wealthy family. You know, the best schools were going to New York City to get the athletes. And then what happened is in the 1970s, in the fiscal crisis, they cut down on the sports, especially below the high school level. So New York was not producing as many great players. So I think it's so commendable that you now have a serious basketball program in this school and to give kids these opportunities. And I wish more schools did this. And then also in sports like soccer too. Because a lot of people in the Bronx now come from countries where soccer is the major sport.
Well, soccer is the major sport worldwide. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even-
And our American team lost to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
How many of you come from families where soccer was the main sport? Okay, what countries are those? Jamaica? So off Jamaica?
Jamaica.
So,
Africa,
which African country?
Gambia.
Gambia, okay. Because there's a lot of people now from West Africa in the Bronx as well as the West Indies, and that soccer is the big sport, not basketball. And then, are there any Dominican students in your class?
We don't have a large Dominican population.
Because there, the baseball is the big sport. Yeah. So, yeah,
But for Jamaican, we don't call soccer soccer, we call it football.
we call it football.
Everyone does.
Right, yeah.
But just in America.
Americans just call it soccer. We tend to create and make up our own names.
Okay,
And considers bullshit, apparently.
Let's call it soccer.
any more questions for this? Yeah.
Something out there. So one of the things I was always told growing up, and which was key for me, that got me through, middle school and high school, was that I was told if you try your best and you do well in school, you can go to college. And so, that brings me to my question for you is, how many of you, like me, were worried about how you're gonna pay for school? That the one thing that everyone talks about all the time? Yeah, well, there are so many people out there who want to see you succeed, and there are so many ways to finance school through, things like loans, financial aid, where the government will give you money because they want you to go to school. But it all depends on if you want to put in the effort starting now. Taking time, listening to your teachers, spending time with your textbooks, or actually reading your novels. It pays off. That's the only way I got to Fordham. So I told my friends, I was like, no, I don't really want to go hang out and do stupid things with you, because I want to go to college in the end. And now, some of my friends, they got kicked out of school, or they never even made it. But here I am, because I wanted to spend the time, and it was possible. I don't have a great financial background, but there were people who were willing to support me, and I have to take out loans as well, but that was okay, because I had something I cared about more, and it's the money in the end is just inconsequential. If you have something you care about more than life itself, you can make it, you can do it. It depends on your attitude about it. So, there might be something out there that really, really deep. Yeah.
Way to wrap it up.
You guys have to leave, or?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, I want to thank you all for coming here. And do you have a card by any chance?
No, but I can, I have your email.
Yeah, email me, because I think what you're doing, well, one, I want to say something, because I spend a lot of time in and out of schools, and I worry a lot about a couple of things. One is I worry that people who are teaching are so concerned about tests that they make everything boring. And two, that we don't have sports and the arts. See, you are lucky enough to have a teacher.
They are lucky. They don't understand it, because that's all they know. So.
Yeah, okay, but when your teacher was describing how he teaches writing, that's the kind of thing that can make you enjoy something which is going to take you a long way in life. Because I can tell you something, writing is an incredibly important skill. Not just in college, but if you're, go into a profession, you want to get, a new project going, you've got to write it up. It's so there, and also starting a basketball team is very important, because there's a great tradition in the Bronx that we lost, and it's great to see it come back. So thank you for coming here, and thank you to my wonderful students.
You're leaving us out, buddy? You're leaving us out. Just relax. Thank you, miss.
Okay, and look at, well, how many of them handed in their papers?